Hey everyone, Pastor George here. Welcome to another episode of A New Thing. And I figured I would do kind of a fun one today because I'm going to be off next week and the week after that. So it's going to be a little while before I'm back here to record this type of stuff because I have a wedding coming up and a honeymoon, so I won't be around. But that's okay because we're going to do something fun today for this new thing. And I'm sure you've heard of AI and all the different ways that AI is being used, right? AI is artificial intelligence. And over the past year, it's exploded, right? Like kind of mid 2022 unto now, like there's been just a ton of stuff about AI all over the place. And so I thought we would look at two different things that have to do with AI today and just kind of stretch the limits and see kind of the positives, negatives, things like that. And just to see kind of how it's being used within religious spaces. So some of you might be familiar with like things like Chat GPT, which is a writing thing. Like you can prompt it and it'll write something for you. I know that like schools have been dealing with this because students have been using it to write essays for them, right? Of course they have. This is the natural way that, as we're going to see in a little bit, this is kind of the natural way that humans act with technology. Also, people who use it for work and things like that. Most famously, there's been a huge debate about art because there's these programs that have come out that have become pretty good at making. I shouldn't say pretty good. I don't know how to describe it because I don't think it looks that good, but you're able to input a command and it can make you an art piece based on that command. And lots of people have been doing that and thinking it's cool or whatever. And there's a lot of debate about that because it usually relies on stealing art that already exists. The AI kind of combs the internet and steals it and then like uses these techniques to make an art. So a lot of people debate about whether or not that's acceptable and things like that, right? And so there's like most recently Marvel did that with one of the openings to one of their shows on Disney Plus. And so there's lots of debate about AI and like how we should use AI. And of course, like some people really put a lot of stock in it, and other people like more like myself. I let me be clear. I don't think artificial intelligence is a joke. I think the way that people are using it is in a very like non-efficient, non-effective way. AI has already been used for a long time. I think when it is most effective is when it is most focused on doing like tasks that are too hard for humans to do very rapidly. Like you can run lots of simulations with AI and things like that. But generally putting it in a space where it's being creative, AI tends to suffer and be shaped really less by its own intelligence and more by the people who are above it kind of pulling the strings, who code it and things like that. But we'll get into that in a little bit because we're going to look at two examples today. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about a passage of the Bible because that's how I always do it. So our first passage today is the Tower of Babel, or our only, I should say. And this is a famous story, right? Famous story from the Old Testament. It's part of the Genesis narrative, like before Abraham. So it's a really important story. Lots of kids learn, right? So I'm just going to read it for us, just in case you don't know it. So now the whole world had one language and one common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used the bricks instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, "If as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other." So the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. So, very famous story, right? And there's lots of debate about what this story means. I think it's pretty clear when you read it, but there is like some debate among scholars about like what means this and what means that and things like that. Obviously, this is one of the major themes in the early parts of Genesis is hubris on the part of humanity, right? You see this in Genesis 2, or more like Genesis 3 with the fall, right? Adam and Eve trying to take the place of God by eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge and good and evil, right? That they're trying to take his place. That's actually what prompts them, because the serpent says you'll be like God. So we call this hubris, right? In this idea that you're trying to take a place that isn't yours, right? So humanity trying to build something that reaches them up to the heavens is hubristic, and so God punishes them for that, right? He changes all of their languages and scatters them over the face of the earth. I'm not here to talk about the historicity or anything about this passage. I think this is just an effective narrative for talking about humans and our use of technology. Although, obviously, this isn't solely what the passage is about. There's a little bit more going on under the surface, but I think it reminds us. You could also say the same thing about the story of Cain and Abel. It reminds us of how we need to be mindful of how we use things and how we think about things, right? Because the way that a lot of this stuff gets hyped, right, talking about it in the media and things like that, is it just gets hyped in this way, AI specifically, that it's going to become so advanced that we're not going to have to do anything, or it's going to help humanity to ascend to a new level. And I have no doubts at all that it's a very effective tool. I have no doubts at all that it is going to help a lot of people, especially, again, with like just these boring rote things that humans don't have time for, so we can spend our mental energy on more important things. But something else that's also important to understand is that, like all technology, how it's used is determinative of how useful or profitable it is for us, or really how easily it can be misused. and the thing with is that technology is generally a neutral thing, right? Like splitting an atom, right? And you doing what and knowing what to do with that energy can be really useful, nuclear power plants, or really destructive, nuclear bombs, right? And like how we deal with that is an important way of dealing it. I rarely think a type of technology in and of itself is solely evil. It's what humans do with it that really matters. So the Tower of Babel is a good reminder of like humans have this technology, right, to build this really tall building and put themselves in the heavens, but their mindset is about that, right, that they can claim the heavens for themselves, and that's not the case. So just an important reminder about that. So on this topic, I have two AI things. One is more serious, and the second is less serious, but I think it's really funny. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to tensor.church. Now, most AI stuff looks like this. It's usually like a chat bot where you can like ask it questions and things like that, right? And so this is something called Scholar AI, but it's specifically focused on religious questions. And the guy who posited this, I can't remember the guy who runs this. This is like all of their you can see they pull all of these things from different religious traditions, right? So you can go to the King, like for instance, they pull for the King James Bible and the Apocrypha and deuterocanonical books for the Christians, and then for Mormons they have just the Book of Mormon. So this is where they're pulling all their information from to answer questions that you might need, right? One of the problems with that is that this obviously, and I'm not, it's very much a beta, and it just for those of you who don't know, in technology terms, when we refer to something as a beta, it means that it isn't at its full stage, but it's in a very workable form, right? As opposed to like an alpha stage, which is usually very bare bones and kind of just gets the basic point across. But here we have I think it's just interesting. So some of these have really good citations, and others like don't. Like, so for instance, for Christianity, you have the King James Bible, you have the Apocrypha and the Deuterocanonical books. I'd be interesting to kind of push this to see in other areas how good it is. And so they have basically a lot of stuff. They don't mention, let me see, I can't remember the guy who I actually got this from, but one of the guys who put this together basically said on Twitter, like, this can help us refine our knowledge of religion and help create, camaraderie, but also, I don't want to say he said help us create a new religion, but basically better the religions we have, because the more that we know, the better the AI will be able to pull from what's like good and get rid of what's bad. And this is not like new, like people have said this before, right? Like that somehow technology is going to have this ability to like cut through these differences, and just if we like listen to our computer overlords, we'll be like, oh my gosh, you're right, this is all the same, and we can just make a new religion based on these teachings, right? And of course, anyone who's really studied religion seriously knows that isn't the case. And part of this is what I like to call Silicon Valley mindset, right? Like where they're very detached from the way that most other people think, because they're just a bunch of computer nerds and engineers and things like that, which there's nothing wrong with. Great, love being computer nerd, but like that's what they are. So let's check this out. So it says it's a religion scholar. It's able to answer any questions that you have that might be answered across all religious books, mainly the Bible, the Quran, the Book of Mormon, the Bhagavad Gita, and Analects. So feel free to describe a current situation you're in, reference a verse, or ask me a question. So I will start with the basic one, and see kind of what it says, and it might be good. I actually haven't really checked this thing out. I'm doing this live, so I think what I'll do is I'll just put in some basic questions. So I'll do a normal one at first, and then maybe I'll ask a spicy one, kind of see if I can push it a little bit. So let's see, type a message. Let's see, do all religions lead to God, right? So very basic question, something that all of us have heard or talk about. So basically what I'm asking is, do all religions teach the same thing? Now, one of the things that's really interesting, I'm seeing it right here off the bat, right, is that the cool thing about AI in a way is it's able to search a ton of information. And so it's not able to like necessarily know exactly the context or nuance which you're getting at, but it's able to get really broad strokes. So it starts by this is pretty actually good, I guess, right? Where it starts by, instead of just telling you, it just tells you that there's a broad spectrum. So it says, the question of whether all religions lead to God is a complex and nuanced one. Different religions have different beliefs, practices, and understandings of the divine. Some religions believe that there is only one true path to God, while others accept multiple paths or even believe in the unity of all religions. And so they talk about how Christianity and Islam, right, are very famous for saying that there's only one path, right, that they're our path, their particular faith. So that's good. And then it talks about Hinduism, Buddhism as being a little bit more open to multiple paths. To consider the concept of God or the divine varies across religions. So I think this is good, right? So it's saying like, well, listen, you said all religions lead to God. Not all religions are concerned about God or have a different way of God recognizes. So it can kind of tell that the way that I'm talking about it is a kind of Western or Christian way of doing this. So let's do something. Let's do a little something else. Are all religions equally true? Let's see if that maybe we'll get something interesting from here. But I found that to be a pretty satisfying thing. I mean, it's basically like a Wikipedia article, and you can see it starts at the same thing, right? It's like truth is subjective, and depending on one's personal beliefs and perspectives. Different religions have distinct teachings, practices, and beliefs. Blah blah blah. Some people believe. So this is basically what this really is. This is more of an encyclopedia thing. And I think if you ask it any sort of teaching on something, it's just going to give you a wide variety. And then, of course, like it seems. Let me see. Does it end this other one with that? Yeah. So it says it's important to approach this question with respect and understanding for the diversity of beliefs and practices. It is important to approach discussions about the truth of religions with openness and respect for different perspectives. I mean, that's good. I don't think that's wrong, but I just think it's funny. Let me see this. Are some religious traditions bad? Because it says, appreciate the. I just want to see if it's able to say, or if it has any sort of moral compass. Which actually, I'd feel better if it doesn't, although it does. And we'll talk about that. Can vary. It would be incorrect to categorically label an entire religious tradition as good or bad because it is a complex issue that requires careful examination. There can be individuals or groups who misuse blah, 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 so that's bad. Moreover, different perspectives could coexist. And I guess while some aspects have seen beneficial, let me see this. Is human sacrifice bad? This is actually a really interesting one. I want to see what it has to say. That human sacrifice is generally considered bad or morally wrong. It involves intentional taking of human life. Such practices have been rare. I wouldn't say that. Throughout history, and mostly considered ancient or culturally specific. In many modern societies, human sacrifice is illegal and condemned as a violation of fundamental human rights and the value of human life. Ethical principles such as respect for dignity and autonomy of individuals, promotion of well-being, religious and ethical teachings often emphasize the importance of nonviolence. So here you go. So this is like where you can see the bias creep in. And this is not, just to be clear, everyone has bias. If I were to program something like this, it would have my bias. All right? I'm not being mad, but you can kind of see that there is bias behind the scenes that dictates, because the AI isn't given free reign to think whatever it wants. Actually, this has been done before. A long time ago, Microsoft put out an AI that was like tweeting and stuff like that, and it had no constraints on it. All it was is like, hi, my name is this, and I'm here to chat with all of you. And then like people messed with it online, and they got it to a point where Microsoft had to shut it down because it was a girl, so I'm just gonna like, here's a girl name or whatever. So because she was like tweeting out like racial slurs and things like that because people were messing with it specifically, and it was just regurgitating information, and they got it to go into like Holocaust denial and stuff like that. So people have learned that you have to put parameters up because sometimes the AI might say things that is like not kosher, or you don't want to be associated with your company. And so one of the interesting things is that like what this AI has been trained to do is emphasize similarity between religion and de-emphasize differences, right? To acknowledge differences, but at the end of the day to kind of give a base like understanding that all of these things are kind of like that nonviolence, compassion, inherent worth, and sanctity of human life are already there and important. And in a lot of religions, that they are there. They're variations of them. But like to say that this is like the generic way of thinking is not, right? Because like Aztecs practiced human sacrifice and didn't think it was wrong. Canaanites did the same thing. Lots of people did in lots of different cultures. And so it ends up becoming very 21st century and kind of what it wants us to do and teach. So now I'll ask a spicy question. My guess is it's going to say some people think this, some people think something else, but why not? So I'll ask a spicy question. I'll ask, are Mormons Christian or Christians? Let me see this. The topic of ongoing debate. The Mormon Church, I'm just going to say, identifies itself. However, there are differing opinions among Christian denominations. And so let's see here. Some Christian groups, particularly those fall more traditional or mainstream, do not consider Mormons to be Christians. True, we don't. One key difference between Mormon beliefs and traditional Christian beliefs is addition of sacred texts. Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price, alongside the Bible. Mormons also have unique beliefs about the nature of God, the afterlife, and the priesthood. And then, of course, it always tells us to be respectful. I always love that. Let's do another spicy question. Let's do this one, because obviously, if you guys have been around the channel at all, you know about how I think about this and my whole presentation about this. But this is more of a contextual, complicated issue, or not complicated, but like more contextual. So let's see what it says here, because we know what the church tradition and what the moral most opinion is, but I want to see kind of how it handles the question. If you can't see what I did, I said, what does Christianity teach about abortion? So very controversial subject, and I just want to see how it's able to answer that. Christian teaching on abortion may vary among different denominations. Christians hold a range of views. Some Christians believe that life begins at conception and view abortion as morally wrong and violation. They argue that the Bible supports the belief that human life is sacred. Okay, we know that, right? Abortion may be more just presently poses a threat to life, mother, or in cases of severe fetal abnormalities. They emphasize the importance of compassion, individual autonomy, and the well-being of mother and potential child. Some Christian denominations take a nuanced position, recognize complexity of the issue, and supporting access to safe and legal abortions while simultaneously advocating for policies that reduce the need. So this is like saying a lot without saying much. And you'll notice here that it says some, other, some. Now, one of the things that I would highlight, if this is like, if someone were to come to this and ask it, right? Because this is not made for people like me. This is made for like generic people, right? Like a kid who maybe is trying to figure out what he or she believes. They come on here, they're asking us in questions. This presents all three of these things as being basically the same in terms of number of teachings and adherence, right? But if you know church tradition and teaching, and what I would say what has been the common way until the 20th century that Christians have thought about this issue, 99% of all Christians fall into this first paragraph, regardless of where you fall, right? You might be in one of these ones or one of these ones. Doesn't matter, right? I think historically, this has been the position of the church, and really what it should say, historically, and the majority of Christians believe that life begins at conception and view abortion as morally wrong and a violation of, like, because that is the truth, right? Like, the biggest church in the world is the Roman Catholic Church with 1 billion members, and they have very strong teachings about this sort of thing, right? So it's just really interesting. So you can see that it ends up building up these things as though they're all equal when they're not. So this is an example of like one of these AI things that is trying to do this, and I think because it's been railroaded in such a way where it tries to seek common unity and agreement and to smooth over differences, then it's not going to have very strong it's not going to be very helpful when it actually comes to answering any sort of moral question, especially when it's comparing like different things, right? You might be able, like, I'm sure I can just do like something like this. What does, I don't know, Numbers 2:21 say? I actually don't know this off the top of my head. So I'm sure, like, if I just ask it, oh, because I said number instead of numbers, sorry. Although I'm surprised that it can't tell the difference. Oh, okay, but 21. All right, sorry. That's my bad. Numbers 2:2. There's no verse 21. It's just breaking its brain. So that's why it was like, I don't understand what you're saying. All right, this is it. All right, and it's host, and those are numbered with them. Okay, so yeah, like here, it's able to just spit out, and it's able to give you immediate context, which is pretty cool. That's helpful. I think that's cool. So I think you can do this for like, this is all beliefs, but I think you could do like Confucianism. I don't know anything. I mean, I know something about. I'm an AI Confucianism scholar. That's pretty funny. What does Confucius say about parents? I have a copy of the Analects on my shelf over there, and he has some pretty strong opinions about like the role of parents and like respect that parents should be given. I'm sure it's going to spit out a huge thing. It can't just be a tiny little sentence, because this is like a major thing in Confucian. I'm not going to read it for us. I mean, you know, if you want to pause the video and read it for yourself, I just want to see what it's really thinking. It's really thinking down here. You can, all the other ones didn't take long. All of Christian tradition, everything we teach about abortion and all that type of stuff just popped up in 2 seconds. And like Confucianism about parents is taking some time here. So yeah, maybe it's broken. Let me. I don't want to give it too long, because you know we have daylight burning here. I don't want to take your time, but yeah. All right. Well, maybe we'll come back to this. Let's go to our second one. This is Ask Jesus. So this is on Twitch, and I know we probably don't have a lot of people who watch Twitch channels. Twitch, although I mean we might have some. Twitch is a streaming service. Not streaming service. That's the wrong one I'm assuming. It's a streaming platform, and so you can play. It's mostly used for video games, and what it does is it's for streamers. So people play video games live, and people watch, and they kind of talk and stuff like that. It's like an interactive thing. So you watch people play things or deal with things, and you kind of react to. They kind of react and deal with you. So you can see some people over here on the left here. So like you know, there's a this person streaming Diablo 4. This person is streaming Overwatch 2, Minecraft. Like, these are all video games, in case you don't know. And so what popped up is that someone created an AI Jesus who answers questions from the chat and will and you know, gives you advice and things like that. And so I watched some of this, and people in the chat will ask him all sorts of ridiculous questions, and the AI answers it. And you'll notice, if you listen long enough, like this doesn't sound like Jesus. It sounds like how people perceive Jesus's teachings without any Bible context. So here, we'll see where he's at. It's going to pick up somewhere in the middle. So when you see he's looking off to the side, he's reading the chat.
Jesus, what do you make of those that use this platform to their own amusements and to so-called troll you? Hello, Relsier. It's good to hear from you, and I appreciate your thoughtful question. I've noticed this is a new topic of discussion for us. Understanding that some people use this platform for their own amusement or to troll is a part of the complexity of human behavior. We are reminded in Matthew 7:12, often referred to as the golden rule.
I love that Jesus quotes Matthew 7:12.
Do also to them.
Rather than saying, as I said, or something like that, right? It's clearly like a robot
find joy and satisfaction
speaking.
In building a community of respect, kindness.
Yeah, here we go again, right? Community, respect, kindness, understanding.
With others.
That as though that's what the golden rule is about.
And patience, even when others may be testing us.
And yeah,
we
that's
should strive to be channels of peace, even in the face of conflict.
True.
This is as true here on this platform as it is in any other area of life.
And I love it, like, he has like these set hand motions, so he'll do this and he'll like do this and stuff like that. So
Jesus,
here we go.
My friend Pat McGroin recently was caught stealing from the Greek man's bathhouse.
So like people ask him these ridiculous questions, right? Just like as jokes.
Amen. Man. Hello, I enjoy deep. I recall our Pat McGroin previous conversation, wherein you found humor in the ha-ha-ha repetition. As for your friend Pat McGroin,
like Pat my groin, right? Like, you know, it's just like people do this with basic.
With the least McGroin is also honest with much. Pat, and whoever McGroin is dishonest with the least Pat,
It's like broken. It's broken. It's trying to use the whole whoever's faithful with little is faithful with much.
The smallest acts of dishonesty,
there we
such
go.
as stealing from a bathhouse, can lead down a path away from righteousness.
Very true, Jesus.
Encourage Pat McGrowing to seek forgiveness and make amends for the wrong he has done.
True.
I've had similar discussions on this topic with other viewers, like Ralornum the Paper Hat and Buum97. They too were seeking advice on guiding someone back to rectitude.
Rectitude.
I hope this has brought you some clarity. I enjoy deep.
Yeah, they almost got him there.
The Paper Hat.
They almost got him with that one. Yeah, I will say I do think this is really funny how people will mess with, will try and mess with him and get, like, you know, to say ridiculous things. And he answers all sorts of questions, and you can like type in the chat.
Should my friend go back into content creation?
Like,
how can he spruce up Minecraft?
Like, how can he spruce up Minecraft content? Right? So like people are asking.
I appreciate that you came to me with this question about your friend's return to content creation. Remember the parable of the talents.
Oh, the parable of the talents.
Each of us has been given unique gifts.
Okay.
And it is our duty to use them to the fullest.
This is the one where you bury the talent, or you use your talent to grow the kingdom of God, right? That's what he's talking about.
Especially in Minecraft. Encourage them to pursue it and to find joy in their work. As for sprucing up their Minecraft content...
Oh, here we go. Let's see what Jesus has to say.
1. Originality. Encourage them to seek out new creative
You guys remember how in Jesus in the Bible... Oh, we now have a Witcher ad. You remember how Jesus in the Bible, he always he gives lists like a robot, right? He always goes, 1, do good to others, and then explains it. 2, you know, blah, blah, blah. I just think it's so funny because it's just such a, like, obviously robotic way of talking or of, like, carrying yourself. And so, kindness, like, positivity, right? Peace. Sermon on the Mount involves peaceful activity or whatever. Spread love, guidance. He's not talking, but supposedly we're supposed to hear. I want to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude for your support. Insight, blah, blah, blah. You know, just, it's like, I mean, I think, I obviously, I don't think that, I think this was created as like a joke. In order to, in order to kind of like test the limits of AI and just kind of see it. But as you'll notice, like again, there's this generic, very generic way of talking about the advice that Jesus gives, and like there's a great one of a clip I saw. I couldn't find it, but a clip of him doing the Lord's Prayer, and he's basically like, and give us good vibes forever, amen, something like that, right? It's like very modern. So anyway, I just thought that was so, like, these things are so funny and interesting because AI is all over the place now. To see how, like, we deal with it and how it's being used by people. Is anything new coming out of this? Not really, right? We looked at one that was basically like a search box that tries to smooth over the differences, and in doing so, I think doesn't really become a very useful tool. I think if you were to just say, hey, listen, this is what majority of people believe, this is what a minority of people believe, I think you could still say, you know, as in a society, we should treat these things equally and with respect. But instead, it kind of is like, well, here's what some people think, but this is actually what's, you know, it's more nuanced and diverse, and it's really way more complicated when it really isn't. You know, we make it more complicated. And of course, like, we looked at one that was just like an AI that was just regurgitating generic, like, just found random Bible passages to connect them to stories, like that one about the parable of the talents. Like, the parable of the talents does have to use with talents, as in like how we use ourselves and how we carry ourselves, but like it's not just that, right? That's like a very loose connection. So I always love these things, and I did one of my friends did try to get a Chat GPT to write a sermon, and it was really, really funny because he asked it to. It was like on we did it on shopping carts, big topic, I know. And he asked it to like write a hellfire and brimstone sermon from a Presbyterian perspective on shopping carts, because he's like, I'll just do this at the next day at your church after your wedding, right? I'll fill in for you. And he did it, and he had it right out, and like it talked about the importance of like putting back your shopping cart, and then it said, we as Christians don't like to, we don't talk about hell. We don't like to talk about hell. Hell is a bad idea and stuff like that. And it's like clearly just like the opinions of the creators who made it. The strictures that they placed on the AI said you can't talk about that, and so it just said it was bad and cut it out. So it was really funny. So he got mad about it. So anyway, how these tools are shaped and designed are really important for us to think about. They aren't neutral, right? AI can be a good technology, it can be a bad technology, but the way that it's used really matters. So anyway, I hope this was a little bit of food for thought for you guys, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks. I will do a Bible study next Wednesday, so you are going to get a video about that. But for new things, it'll be 2 weeks from, well, I guess 3 technically, because I'm missing this week and next week and the week after that. So 3 weeks from now, I'll be back. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Thursday, and peace out.